Welcome back, everybody. It's February. Yeah, it is. It's time. It's that time of the month again. I don't mean, the red witch has arrived or whatever euphemism you like to call it. I mean, it's time for Bad Apple, the literary talk show where we talk to the bad apples of the literary world. And by bad apple, I mean, bad, like sick, like dead good. Okay, so our first guest this evening is the wonderful poet. He's called Jamie Thrasivoulou. He is, he's amazing. I love him to bits. He won the 2019 Saboteur Award for Best Spoken Word Performer. I've got a feeling I was up against that, and he won. That's how good he is. Come on now. And he's got a book out with Burning Eye, amongst other things. He's a good lad. Let's welcome to the stage. It's Jamie. Jamie, turn your video on now. Yeah. Craig goes crazy.
Hey up. Woo! Yeah. Feel those Zoom crowds, innit?
And Jamie, it's dead mental this, because it's like we're doing like our little interview, aren't we? It's just me and you in our front rooms.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? It's weird.
Yeah.
But it's what it is, isn't it?
Where are you from, Jamie? What's that accent?
Derby.
Ooh.
Derby, me duck. I'm from Derby, me duck.
Nice.
You know where I'm from anyway, Faz. Messing about. You come and done my night in Derby.
What's
taking this interview too seriously, mate, you are,
I know, and it's a nice drive down there. Actually, it's worth the drive to come and do your night. Because to be fair, when I come and did your night, I think I might have been twice. The crowd was absolutely mental. The crowd was so good. It was such a good vibe, and it's like in a little pub, in it, like a back room attached to a pub.
Yeah. It's called the Maypole in the West End of Derby. So yeah, it's nice
around there.
It's had its days, definitely. It's a bit calmer these days, but that's where I used to knock around as a kid a lot. So those streets have seen some stuff around there.
What was your journey like to poetry? Like, how did you end up being a poet?
Right, so I was always creative. I used to scream and shout in punk bands and that in my younger years. So I first got on a stage when I was about 14 doing that. So I did that for years and years, thinking I was going to be, rock star, thinking I was going to be the next Cedric Bixler-Zavala out the drive-in, but it didn't quite work out for me. But as well as being creative, I always had like my foot in a different world, so to speak, and I was involved in a lot of other stuff that's not particularly, good.
You was a bit of a naughty Del boy, weren't you?
Yeah, a lot worse than Del Boy's got some redeeming characters. I don't think I had many in them days. So I basically, my life was on a complete downwards trajectory, and something clicked in my head and just told me, like, you know what, you keep getting in trouble. You got to change your narrative, otherwise all you're going to leave on the earth is that you're a lad who's done this. And I sort of realised that I had more desire to achieve things in life. I didn't really know what that was, but I realised that I did have some desire and aspiration, which maybe some of the people I was knocking about with all the time didn't really share that. So ultimately, I just decided I was going to go to university. Do you know what I mean? I ended up in trouble. I ended up in prison. And then while I was there, I just sort of decided, right, when I'm out of here, I'm going to go to uni. So I went to uni. I went to Derby Uni, told them the story, says, look, been in trouble, blah, 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 but I'm looking to turn my life around. And they were like, right, yeah, obviously we'll have to have a little find out what you've done to check whether you could come to the uni. And they were like, yeah, cool, we'll have you. We appreciate you moving your life on. Brilliant. So went and did some A-levels and GCSEs. And I originally had the intention, like I was going to do something like what was I going to do? Yeah, American Studies and Global Development, because I was quite passionate about the idea of going to help people out. I knew as part of the Global Development thing, you got to go over to Africa and do positive things. But then I looked into the course properly and I was like, oh, that looks like loads and loads of geography, science and maths. And I'm not really mad on that. So on the day that I was going to go to sign up for the degree, I bumped into my mate who was like, oh, I'm signing up for this creative writing. I was like, what? Creative writing? I was like, is that even a degree? Do they do creative writing? He was like, yeah. He's like, it's a degree, man. They're doing it. I was like, well, that's wicked, because I already write. By that time, I think my nan had died. And I'd gone through a process of I'd started writing what I now recognise as the start of poetry. and short stories. So I'd start experimenting with that as a therapy. And when he said that to me, I was like, right, I'm changing my course. So I walked up to uni and I did a joint honours degree in American Studies and creative writing. And then on that degree, I was lucky enough to work with a poet called Matthew Clegg, who's from Sheffield, who's a brilliant poet, absolutely fantastic poet. And he saw something in me, because I always had this idea like, yeah, I'm here to be the next Irving Welsh. I'm going to be like the East Midlands equivalent. I'm going to write the Derby version of Trainspotting. I'm still going to do that, but I just got caught up by poetry. I mean, poetry's shorter, so it's easier to finish than a novel. And kind of what Matthew said to me, he said that we did a lecture that was on process. And he was like, what is your thought process in terms of when you start being creative? And when I explained what my process was, he says, Jamie, have you ever considered that you might be a poet? And I was like, what? So I don't identify as a poet. You know, it's not really, you know, you see, obviously, you know, lucky enough to have always been influenced by people like Johnny Clark and Linton Kwesi Johnson and that, but you still don't necessarily see yourself as maybe falling into that. You maybe doubt yourself a little bit. But yeah, so he put an uncomfortable idea in my head. And then, yeah, that would have been back in 2008, 2009, something like that. And here we are now. Yeah.
Amazing. So you're doing it full time now, aren't you? Full time poet? Yeah,
full-time poet, educator, blooming counsellor, I think, at times as well.
Yeah. Right, and it's like therapy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before we talk a little bit more about that sort of stuff, Jamie, do you want us to do as a poem?
I'll do a poem, yeah. I'll do a poem. So I'll do one that's from the 2019 collection, Our Man, which was published by Burning Eye Books. And I'll do one that's about actually... So you came to the pub called the Maypole. Over the park, there was another pub called the Victoria, of course. It would have to be called the Victoria, you know, a bit like EastEnders. And that pub's now a block of flats. So this poem is like an ode to what that place was like. And this is me trying to keep it alive a little bit. And it's called Someone's Left Behind a Sovereign Ring. And it goes like this. I see you and you see me, but there are black spots in the corner to the left of the pool table opposite the dartboard, or in that seat by the window, the one in which Stevie glassed that Cockney youth right after he said, I actually liked Thatcher, or matter-of-factly. Good old Stevie saw to him, mind. Obviously, there's the bogs as well. Both cubicles are guaranteed occupied on a weekend night. The tiles still caked in tar from before the smoking ban. Toilet tops littered with nefarious substances. Fast catching, someone's even left behind a sovereign ring. Back at the bar, Murdoch newsreading Muppets are rendered defeated and drank out for the day. The monitor behind the bar details every word of crimes that pay. Every utterance of knocked off meat, deli cheese, HD tellies and games consoles, Jordan cheap with no guarantee. Stevie turns round to Bob the barman and says, turn the fucking jukebox up. We can hear ourselves talk. There you go. There you go. Yeah, some Zoom applause.
Yeah, oh, Jamie, I love that. I've not heard that before.
No, I didn't think you'd have heard it, so that's why I thought I'd do that one, because I suppose the last time we gigged together in any realm was probably after my first book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was quite a few years ago.
A few years ago now.
Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, possibly. I know, it's mad, that, isn't it? I love that. I love the sovereign ring, and I love the fighting, and I love the pub, and I love how we Thatcher. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is the work that I want to hear. This is the work that I want to hear. Thank you, Jamie. Now, just before we started recording, because we chat before, you know, like we chat before, you mentioned about, like, you've been doing some commissions. So, like, for the university as well, tell us about these commissions you've been at, because
let's start that question again, because I'm not meant to have mentioned that.
That's absolutely fine.
Don't mention any specific commission. Don't mention them specifically, because I'm still not allowed to announce them.
Yeah, it's fine. You're in an under embargo. Right, I'll start again. So I'll have gone on and on about how I really like the poem, then I'll just cut to the next bit. Now, Jamie, we were talking beforehand, and I know that you've been doing some work for commissions. How does it feel, like the difference between writing for commissions and then writing for stuff that comes from inside?
Yeah, I mean, I actually wrote about this because I completed an MA last year, like yourself. Yeah. And I wrote about this as part of my dissertation for my master's, actually. And I sort of, you know, tried to quantify the different processes that are involved in it. And what I kind of came to the conclusion was that, you know, ultimately, when you're writing for yourself, that is really easy, in the sense that it's easy to get those initial ideas out there. The hard work comes in the editing and the finding the form and whatever else, perfecting them or abandoning them or whatever it is we do with poems. But when it comes to a commission, the process is, for me, is different, because as much as, right, I wouldn't, let's get one thing straight. I wouldn't take on a commission that I had no, you know, nothing in.
Yeah. No, I've seen things advertised where they want a poet or a writer to write something, and I just think, I have nothing to add. I'm nothing to add to this.
I've turned down jobs and passed on jobs that weren't for me, because ultimately I have to see something in there that I could connect with. So I'm quite lucky in the fact that a lot of my commissions have been and do come from people with a vested interest in Derby or the Midlands. So that for me works fine, because I can talk about that all day long. It's something that I'm proud of. I'm a proud Midlander. I'm proud of being from Derby, proud of being from an underdog city that no one really knows where it is. That all that kind of stuff suits me. But there is undoubtedly a different process involved, because you are, whether you want to admit it or not, you are already considering what audience you're writing for. Whereas when it's your own thing, I mean, I don't know, maybe some people think or do consciously write for an audience in their own work. I don't personally. I don't give a shit if anybody likes my work or does. No, it's great when they do. Sorry, that sounds a bit wrong.
No, I know what you mean. I'm the same. I write for what I want to put
out. It's a selfish act. It's a selfish act. You know, writing for myself is a selfish act. Whereas, and if people like it, great. That's a bonus. But when it comes to a commission, it can't be a selfish act, because there is a target audience that the person who has commissioned you wants you to reach and connect with. So I think that, you know, I'm not saying look, your heart's in it. It has to be in it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do the writing. There's going to be a piece of you in that writing. But also, I do think that there has to be a flexibility, that you may not be happy on every occasion with what you produce. And I always put that down to a few things. So that could be that you're being directed by the commissioners in terms of what they want. So they ask you to make edits that you have to be flexible on and probably don't even agree with, because that's happened to me, where I'm like, I don't actually agree with the edit that you're saying, but I'm going to do it because you want it, because you're the client. And then the other part is the time constraints. Like when it's your own writing, you could take 8 years writing a poem if you want. When it's somebody who's like, I need this by March and it's January, you've got 2 months. And you've got to do your best. So I think there has to be like a, and then the other thing you're dealing with commissions is that most of the, like, probably your most famous work will end up being a commission.
Yeah, because you often get a video attached to it, don't you?
This is it. Yes.
And it gets pushed out by more people.
That's what I mean. And
it's not that, yeah.
That's it. So essentially, some of the poems I'm known for are so far removed from my own personal poetry, like my collections. They're so far removed that, you know, sometimes that can work I think it can work in a good way, because then you surprise people with the content that you naturally write.
How do you feel about your football poem? You did a football poem, didn't you?
Yeah, the Derby County one. Yeah, I love that. I'm well happy. To be fair, I'm well happy with being known for that. That doesn't bother me, because it was like, you know, I've supported Derby County since I was a kid. It was always actually my ambition to become Derby County's first ever poet. And I never knew how that was going to happen. But I think that it just goes to show, if you put something in yourself and believe in it, then maybe there's other things controlling that destiny. And that's kind of what happened to me with that.
When you set yourself on a path towards a certain place, like I remember setting myself on a path thinking, right, I want to be I want to be Glastonbury's poet. I want to go to the festival and be the poet. That would be cool. So how do I do that? And then I found out how you did it, and then started to try and work the things up. No, it's never happened for me, Jamie. They don't seem to want me yet.
Not yet. Yeah, but I think I'm not even bothered about being controversial here. I think we all know what goes on with the Glastonbury selection process. I'm not bothered. I don't care if I offend the people who are selecting those poets. It's just quite obvious. 3 years in a row, you can look at the poets on the Glastonbury stage and you can see most of them be the same. So,
I think we're quite pragmatic people as well, aren't we, Jamie, me and you?
Yeah.
We come from, working, I always say working class in every single episode of this, so I bet people get fed up of it. But we come from humble beginnings, so you've got to think about paying the bills as well, don't you? Which is why it's interesting to talk about commissions, because there's a difference between writing for pleasure and writing to get paid. And also with things like Glastonbury and festivals, often they don't pay you, do they? They just give you a free ticket. But I mean, I quite like an experience. So for me, I like a festival because I like going for free.
I'm definitely with you. But also, like, my theory on these kind of things is that I'm not really willing to sell myself. I'd rather get paid for a commission than have to lick too much arse to get on at Glastonbury.
Oh yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
like what it is. Don't get me wrong, I'll probably still put the apps in, but I don't expect to get them. So it's just one of those things, It's just one of those things. That's life, isn't it?
It is life, and there's more to life than Glastonbury.
Exactly.
Jamie, do you want to do us another poem? Because I'll
do another poem, shall I? I'll do another poem. I'll do the title poem from Our Man, which is cunningly called Our Man. But first, I just need to look in my book to find where it is, because I forgot.
I'll admit, I've not bought this book yet, Jamie, but it is on my buy list.
We'll sort it out. We'll sort that out.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm that rusty from I used to know where it was in the book, and now I'm I have to search for it, which is.
It's quite fun though when you finally got a book to read from, because then you do your product placement and you're like, oh, here's my book.
I'm not really doing it right, am I?
Yeah, no, you need to shove it up a bit closer. So
it's like that.
Who's that on front cover?
It is. His name is Tilney, and it's a photo by an absolutely, in my opinion, the most important photographer working in the UK right now, Jim Mortram.
Oh, okay.
J.A. Mortram. His thing's called Small Town Inertia. You may have heard of it. You should have heard of it. If not, check it out.
I'll put the link in the comments for everyone.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to, he asked me to write a poem as a preface to his photography collection. And then obviously I was like, oh yeah, can you give me a photo for my book? And he's like, yeah. So yeah. Well, yeah, we're really good mates, really, really good people. Yeah, good. He's a good person. So I'll go for it. It's called Our Man. Our man has fled the page of hegemony, war-torn and bleeding detachment. Our man, first in the pub, last to leave. Our man, from fit fiddle to organ rupture, from solid joiner to rickety structure. Our man, amidst signals from deluded stations, engages in the refusal of social invitations. Our man ain't just staying off the drugs, he's staying off the people. Our man, only halfway through his life, is already focused on the sequel. Our man has signed an abatement order against his soul, mind plagued, neurons severed, is on the verge of himself, lamented by absence. Our man, the voice of treason, hammer to the nail. Our man has walked out on himself. Part 2. Our man is lost to the conflicted voices in his skull, backed against the wall. Can he even stand tall? Our man can remove his masks and face his reflection. Our man ain't as doomed as he believes, may well question what he achieves. Our man needs to nurture his self-belief. Our man is a part of us all. Hold him up. Don't let him fall. Zoom crowd.
You can clap at home and cheer at home.
Yeah.
I like that. I liked how it had a lot of space for the listener to bring meaning, because I was like, there's like that thing into it, like our kid, our, you know, like my brother,
Yeah.
you know, our Lisa, my cousin, you know, so like I feel like when I'm listening to that, I'm thinking about, because I've not heard it before, our man is a little bit about humankind and mankind. So it's about one man, but every man, but in a kind of way that we speak it, like our.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of a phrase, isn't it? So it's like our man on the inside, or our man there, or our man there. Do you get what I mean? So I kind of just, I suppose I used that. That came in my head as kind of a way to talk about the masculine experience on a whole, as in our man, because everybody has an our man in their life. So it might be the dad, it might be the brother, it might be the son, it might be the cousin, it might be whatever, but everyone's got probably a man in their life that they need to keep an eye on. Do you get what I mean? And or not only that, some of them ain't aware they've got to keep an eye on them, because unfortunately, you know, and I, you know, I'll hold no qualms about this. Me interacting with my emotions for a number of years was a huge problem. Obviously, now that I'm a poet and far more in touch with my emotions, it's not so problematic anymore. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. So even though I'm a poet, even though I now have the ways to cope with this, I still mess myself up from time to time.
There's not just one way, is there? Like writing is a good way, but you can't just use one tool all the time. You were talking about doing exercise and stuff before when we were chatting, weren't you? Like different ways to kind of feel.
That's it. I think, in all honesty, you know, it's probably like last year that taught me that I can't just write my way out of it, because I used to just think, oh, it's all right, I've got my coping tools. You know, I don't need to go back and have any therapy. I don't need to worry about anything else. Don't need to do meditation and mindfulness and all that. But no, it's bollocks. I need to do everything, because I think you've got to ultimately, you know, looking after yourself mentally is a combination of things. It's not just one thing that will work.
Yeah, and it's different things work at different times, isn't it? Like I put on my Facebook the other day, or last night or something, that I'd hugged a tree for the first time, and it's like,
Do you know, I skimmed past it. I remember seeing this actually now.
It's like a stupid joke, tree huggers. But I just saw that I were out and I just thought, never hugged a tree. Oh, I'll have a crack at that.
It's interesting. You should say it, because I can't. If I remember correctly, right? A good friend of mine, Praxis Jones, Simon Praxis. He does a bit of spoken word. He's a great spoken word artist, but he's also heavily into his nutrition. And you know, he's great. He's brilliant. And he mentioned something to me about there's some kind of commune been set up in some woods with some of the eldest trees in the world, and they're currently they're doing some kind of studies into how much of a benefit this has to humans to be around these trees. So it's not like, you know, I mean, to people like us, Faz, coming where we come from, it sounds mad. You know, if someone had told me, like, even 3 years ago, you're going to meditate, I'd have been like, fuck off, I ain't meditating. What's that hippie shit? You know what I mean? I literally would have been, because my mind was so closed to that kind of stuff, and it's so against my narrative. You know what I mean? That's what them poncy middle class twats do. Do you know what I mean? It's not what people like me do. I don't do fucking meditation. But the truth is, you know, the more you open yourself up to these things, the more you get surprised in life. So I think, you know.
Well, I remember reading once about something to do with, the 5 a day got shoved down our throats. And I was like trying dead hard to get my kids to have 5 a day. I was not bothered about myself, but I was trying for the kids. And then I'd read something about, like, in the 1800s, about, like, the aristocracy knowing about the value of fruit and veg. And I was just like, oh my God, they knew about it then. And it's only just coming down now. You know, so I think, like, some things that other people do, like meditation and quinoa, it's good. And, like, we should get some too. So that's my thoughts on that. But this is the beauty of being a creative and getting to do arty stuff. It's like you get to have these sorts of conversations that you only might think about 2 o'clock in the morning in the kitchen at a party. You get to have them in the daytime without illegal substances.
Happy days. That's it. Happy days.
Jamie, it's gone too quick. I'm wondering, like, I feel like we've hardly talked about anything. We're so nice seeing you. Can you finish off with a poem for us?
I'm sure I can. Let me have a look.
Have a look.
Have a look what I do. I might do something from from the first collection.
But while you're looking, I was just thinking as well, when I was listening to you talk about man, like eventually the chorus just became sounds, like not like men, but like maybe a little bit, you know, like a chant, like
yeah.
I don't know, it was really nice how it changed from word into sound.
It definitely, it's definitely an intentional thing. I did like when I created the poem. Like when I create poetry, I work obviously in a really oral way anyway, which you meant to, because that's what poetry is, an oral tradition. So to all those page purists out there, you twats, because poetry is an oral tradition. So, you know, do whatever you want, you know, use it to discriminate against lower class citizens of poetry all you want, but it's the most bollocks term I've ever heard in my life. And yes, so obviously part of that process that's really important to me was the way it sounds. And I wanted it to have kind of a hypnotic kind of maybe just where you fall into it. Where you just fall into it as like a soundtrack, if you get what I mean. So that was an intentional thing. Cool. So I'm going to do this one called Anywhere Street DE1. And I think the reason I'm going to do it is because I think it was the first, I don't know, was it the first? Yeah, I think it was the first poem I shared a version of on SoundCloud back in about 2009 or something like that. And an edited version of it made it into my first collection. So I'll just go for that. It's called Anywhere Street DE1. Tarmac roads of quicksand effect. 6-foot fences to trap us in. Destitute buildings, shops to let. Don't look like letting anyone in. Diamonds cut the earth. Broken glass, shining dog shit, replaces the ground beneath my feet. Gang tags sprayed across street signs demonstrates a lost direction of youth, alienated by society, but quite possibly let down by the mums and dads. Education begins at home, but some of these cats been left to roam since the day dot, huddled round corner shops, giving it the blah, blah, blah. The same place where habitual wine drinkers gather about glass hands, trading intoxicated philosophies with their brothers and sisters of smacked up, garched out descent. The gurning speed freak says his piece too. Face contorted, tongue twisted, chewing on a bag of spanners. Sammy stumbles over, passes the Dutch up on the right-hand side, but they let him off. After all, he's steamboated. It's 2 PM, for God's sake. The man's been on it for hours. What a legend. As I watch this play out from the corner of curb to eye, it feeds and starves my hungry mind, where your mother, nature, is nowhere in sight.
Goosebumples then. Jamie, that really works well performing on the Zoom. You know what I mean? Like, I know in real life it's got power, you know, and you're on the stage and you're moving and the atmosphere in the room is changing, but it's got power over the screen as well. So I'm glad you did that. Yeah,
I tried. Yeah, do you know the thing is, it's like I actually thought I was going to forget the poem, so I had the book there. Then I was trying to read it, and I was like, actually, it's harder to read it. I think I do know it, and I need to trust myself. So I just kind of just went with it. Then I was like, oh, forget reading it. I'm just gonna go into my zone or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Go into your flow state. State where your words are just coming out and your body's going and it's happening. Oh, thanks, Jamie. Right, that's the end of our very short interview. It's been so good to see you. It's been so good. Put all the links in everything so people can find the people you've referenced and recommended, and also to get your book and that. All right. I hope to see you live soon.
Oh, eventually we'll be there, Faz. We'll be doing some.
We're on our way now, aren't we?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right. Ta-ra.
Take care. See you later.
behalf of Bad Apple, our second guest, it's the wonderful Melanie Branton. Now, Melanie is based in Bristol, but she has been up to Wigan to share her set at the Old Courts, which was really exciting. Melanie is a National Slam finalist. She's got 2 books out, My Cloth-Eared Heart and Can You See Where I'm Coming From? She's been described as funny, clever, ironic and dry, and I'm really happy to have her on the show because she is indeed a bad apple. Melanie, turn on your screen. Welcome to the stage.
Hello.
Oh, it's lovely to see you, Melanie. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's lovely to see you as well.
Oh, super. I suppose, like, I met you in Edinburgh, and I just really, really loved your work. So I think I've seen.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I think I've seen 2 of your shows now, and I've seen a set and stuff, and I just think like more people should know about you. Like over lockdown, I've noticed on your Facebook you've been like sharing different elements of language and stuff. Like, yeah, the dreaded fronted adverbial, but like more interesting stuff that I'm genuinely interested in. Poet. Can you tell me just a little bit about how you love a third language and poetry? How you feel about it all?
Well, I absolutely love the English language. I always have done since I was a child. I think I was a very young child when I realised in the dictionary it told you where words came from, and I thought that was really exciting. Yeah, and I've sort of gone. I studied English language as part of my degree, and I just love linguistics. I asked for linguistics books for Christmas, and people think I'm really weird. And yeah, and I've written a show about the history of the English language, which I was going to tour this year, but obviously that did not happen for obvious reasons. But I have been lucky enough to be able to take workshops based on it into sixth form colleges or FE colleges, and that's been really exciting. It's just a very different, more creative way of sort of looking at the English language. So I'm really excited about that.
What's the show called, Melanie?
It's called The Full English.
Oh, cool, like your breakfast. And what's like? How is it? Is it like a history of the world? Like, do you start at Adam and Eve? I don't know. No, that's not the start. So Christian. Sorry. Go on.
No, it's the history of the English language, but that is obviously world history because the English language is a history of immigration. The English language itself doesn't come from England. From the moment it arrived in England from sort of Germany, Denmark, Netherlands area in about 425, it's constantly been taking bits from somewhere else. There's nothing in the English language that is from England. You know, it's just constantly been enriched by different waves of immigration, and obviously we have exported it, not always, you know, to willing recipients around the world as well. So it is a very multicultural history, which is exciting as well.
Yeah, like even when you start saying about that, I get excited. When I'm writing, like I'm writing a novel at the moment, and I'm doing a lot of kind of finding out like different words for like fairy and troll, and you know, like I want character names to have meaning, like every single character name, and I just love diving into that. And are there any like particular words you talk about in the show, or particular words that you enjoy the history of? I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, Mel.
Actually, yeah, the first poem in the show, the title poem, The Full English, is basically it's about words that I just love, words that I love for no reason as well. It's not what they mean, because I mean obviously we all love words like chocolate and pizza, but it's words that you just love the sound. I just love the sound of them. They're just stupid words, and I just love feeling them in my mouth actually when I say them. But it was amazing using those just random words I picked because I like them. It's amazing how so many of them are from different parts of the world, and they have got different textures of sound in them, and you know, and so if you want, I can do the poem. You can see what I mean.
Oh yeah,
it's just basically an excuse to cram as many of my favorite words into a poem as possible.
Oh yeah, Melanie, do your poem. That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Words, lexis, vocab, verbiage, spiel, patter, blurb, bump, bunting, bagel, buzzcut, balderdash, bone-headed bogeyman, butter-fingered bugaboo. Hoo-ha. Hoo-ha. It's an argot from Argos. It's a value vernacular. It's a patois from Poundland, but it's still quite spectacular. It's an idiotic idiom used idiosyncratically. It's a philharmonic, philanthropic, philosophic filigree. But yum yum or humdrum, humbug or humdinger, burble gurgle, gutter snipe or gung-ho gunslinger, gunpowder, jump the gun, current headlines, current bun. Thunderbirds are go, go, go. Santa Claus went ho, ho, ho. Elvis went uh-huh, uh-huh. But ooh la la, what a brouhaha when Lord Haw-Haw caused a hoo-ha, hoo-ha. Call the cops, pip pip, chip chop, and a nee-naw, 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 knick-knack, paddywhack, itsy bitsy piggyback. I have a hunch, you have a snack. In your plinky plonky honky tonky hanky panky haversack. Harum scarum, hurly burly, hocus pocus, curly whirly, hoo-ha, hoo-ha. It's a motley medley, it's a mottled muddle. Our language is a bag of tricks. It's a cash and carry, piccalilli, pepperoni, pick and mix. You can taste the zeitgeist on your tongue. It's a buffet of umami. A blitz, tornado, tour de force, a bona fide tsunami. It's a plush posh, swish flash, hashtag huge hash. It's a bish bosh, wish wash, car crash, mishmash. It's a hodgepodge, hopscotch, hugger mugger, butterscotch, hoo-ha, hoo-ha. Now, I'm a hokey cokey ice cream and I really take the cake. And you, like a 99, are now stuck with a flake. But in all its knickerbocker glory, in all its tutti fruity pride, the English language has a story that'll make you go all soft inside. So have a heart, don't have a dig at this hoity-toity flibberty gibbet and her hurdy-gurdy whirly gig.
That's so much. I like the, oh wow, I like the lightness of tone. It's really hard to write really like light, fun stuff. And like I just feel like you've really hit the nail on the head. Now I'm saying these words, I'm saying a cliche, but I'm saying a word, hit the nail on the head. And when you first said hoo-ha, I thought to myself, brouhaha. And then when it landed later on, I was like, yeah, I was thinking of that. Oh, there's some wonderful bits there. The liberty gibbet. And I like your flake. You know, I like a bit of self-deprecating poetry. Oh, sorry, Mel. I just really enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you. It's always hard, as you know, well, with comic poems, because with you know, a serious poem, as long as it says what you want it to say, it's fairly straightforward. But with comic poems, it's so hard to know whether they're going to have, you know, well, basically people are going to find them funny. It's, you know, so it's always a lot scarier sort of developing comic stuff.
Oh, but you got some great stuff. I like that itsy bitsy, but then it didn't go to the teeny weeny bikini, and you have it back. You know, I just really loved it. And so, the history of the English language then. So you said you've been able to do it for some high schools and from college. Sorry.
Yeah, some A-level students at FE colleges mostly. Yeah.
That's cool. And so that's good. So if anyone watching is indeed a lecturer and needs some work to come in, visiting poet, probably great on your said.
Yeah. I can also sort of do it or give sort of talks on the history of the English language to sort of community groups or sort of women's groups as well. You know, it can be adults or primary schools. I've got some poems about grammar as well, for because obviously they have to do. I've got very strong feelings on this, but they have to do grammar now at primary school, and a lot of parents and a lot of teachers are very scared of this. But you know, I actually think that grammar can be done in a fun way, and so.
Yeah, I think like if I know from my own children's experience, I think the idea of learning grammar and helping you learn a language is great. But what bothers me more is they do all that learning in year 6 and then they never touch it again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that, for me, I feel like it feels pointless because you do it all in year 6 and they ignore it year 7 onwards.
Yeah.
And maybe if you do an A level, you come back to it again. But
yeah. They were advised not to do it like that. They were advised to spread it out throughout the curriculum, but you know, government don't listen to experts. They know better.
So I've heard like little rumours on the grapevine that we might be doing that Edinburgh Fringe might be doing an online fringe. So do you think you might like to be doing your show if that happens?
Possibly. I was going to give Edinburgh a rest last year before it was forced anyway, because I don't know, because I was going to do it at the Barnstaple Fringe, which is a sort of a small sort of theatre, a lovely theatre festival in Devon. But obviously I think that's going to, I'm not sure if that's going ahead even this year now. So that's something I'll have to look into actually, because Edinburgh I've got slightly mixed feelings about. I think I've done it a few times now, and I think it's but I suppose you haven't got the expense of it online, so maybe that's it.
Yeah, I like Edinburgh because I like to be able to see poets from all over the country, and it's really expanded my network. Otherwise, like I wouldn't have met you. There's so many poets I wouldn't have met. But I only actually did it with a full show once, and I only did a week because it's so high energy and just like hard.
Yeah, I know it's knackering and it's mentally and physically it's I mean, everyone I think who can should do it at least once. I think it's
I'm aware there might be people watching who aren't that sure about what the Edinburgh Fringe is, because I'd not heard of it until I went after uni. And if you don't do like an arts degree at uni, you might not have heard of it or been. I just don't know. So it's just a quick recap. In August in Edinburgh, if you go, every single space you can imagine, from like a back room at a cafe to a school to a clinic to all these rooms in pubs, all get turned into little spaces and people do shows. So like theatre, comedy, poetry, dance, all sorts of other things. But basically, I'm just having a little recap, and it's just bonkers. So if you go to Edinburgh, you get to see like 5 shows in one day, but often the performers don't make much money. Now, I talked about your love affair with language, but when I was watching your sets initially, it was kind of like about being single, like that was your other topic. Whatever you want to speak about to do with that, like, was that My Coffee and Heart, or?
Yes, yeah, there was I did that's the title of my first collection, but I also did a show that's got sort of poems from both my collections in it, about being single, because I am rubbish at finding a boyfriend, clearly, because I'm sort of nearly 53 and I've still not really had sort of a long-term relationship at all ever. And now I've got to the stage where I'm quite glad. I think I've made peace with that, and I feel that actually I like being on my own. But for a long time it was a huge wound, really, because particularly as women, we're under so much pressure that to judge your value on whether you've got a partner or not. And so really that show was just exploring different facets of being single and how I felt about it, and sort of reasons for it. So, but yeah, I have got loads of poems about my shit love life.
Well, I mean, like, I've had a bit of a romantic history, and like I've got quite a lot of boyfriends, but not really found one that I like to stick with. And like, my mum was a single parent, and it took her quite some time to find someone to marry and fall in love with. So I remember that kind of like, people asking, "Have you got a boyfriend? Have you got a boyfriend?" And it's a similar lines of, "Do you have children? Do you have children?" You know, like it's a popular topic conversation. That's a popular topic of conversation, I think is what I'm trying to say. I really enjoyed that show, and like I love matchmaking, and I always think, who could I matchmake? But I bet that might be a little bit annoying as well. Do you want to do a poem from that, or not really?
Yeah, I can do. Because I think one thing about being single is there are disadvantages, but one thing you know, if you're a woman, that you will never, well, if you're single or in a relationship, that you will never ever be short of is other people's unsolicited advice about your love life and everything else, because you know, something about being a woman is people think they can tell you what to do all the time. So this is about the love life advice I have had generously given to me, sometimes by complete strangers. It will happen when you least expect it. That's what people have been telling me since I was 16. I lie awake at night thinking about all the times and places when I wouldn't expect it to happen. Maybe it will happen on a train. When the ticket inspector says single, he won't just be inquiring about my travel documentation. Maybe it will happen at the supermarket, when the man behind the checkout says, "Would you like any help with your packing?" It will be obvious whose slot he wants me to put my green tokens into. Maybe it will happen at work, although hopefully not in my current work, because that would incur a maximum 7-year prison sentence and I'll be barred from teaching for life. Maybe it will happen in the middle of the night. A burglar will break into my house and our eyes will meet through the hole in his balaclava and we'll just know. Maybe it will happen on the toilet. The man from Atlantis will swim his way up past the U-bend and surprise me from below, or someone will ooze his way in through the shower head in aerosol form like the frigging Greek god Zeus. Maybe it will happen at my funeral. There'll be an unusually enterprising necrophiliac in the congregation, thereby also corroborating that other bullshit piece of advice people keep giving me. It's never too late, you know, it's not a race. But then again, maybe where I've been going wrong is by thinking of all these unexpected scenarios. So now I'm expecting them, which is why it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, Melanie, you're such a clever poet. I love having this little personal poetry performance, because obviously there'll be loads of people watching at home. But this has been one of the nice things about doing these interviews, that like you can really focus on the words and get that. I love this. I love getting this. Like, for me, it does feel like live performance without all the fuss. Without someone like tapping your knee while you're trying to listen, or someone moving the chair and you're like, shut up, I'm trying to listen. You know, like without having to look at someone's full body even, you know, like I can just listen to your words and your mouth and your face, and I'll just really like that. So is that book still for sale, or?
Yes, yeah, that one's from my second collection, which is Can You See Where I'm Coming From, which you can either get from my publisher Burning Eye, or if anyone's in touch with me on sort of Facebook or Twitter, etc., you can always message me, and you can buy it from me directly as well. But just don't get it from Amazon, you know, or the big retailers, because that's you know, just publisher or poet if you can, and small retailers if you can't.
There's on a crazy cat fight behind this. This is live.
Oh,
I was trying to take it out. Naughty. Sorry about that. What I'll do, Melanie, is I'll put the tags in the comments so that people can find you, so they can easily get your work. We've just said that in the first half I had Jamie Thrasivoulou, who's a poet.
Oh, yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah, he's a great poet, but he's also with Burning Eye. And I know they've got like a deadline soon for people who might have collections and stuff. Anyway, I just thought I'd just throw that out there.
Yeah, they're a great publisher, so do submit. Yeah,
you're on an amazing roster, because like there's some such good poets on there. Like I think, how did you feel when they accepted you for publication?
It was really, really exciting. And Clive, who sort of founded the firm, had said a couple of times he liked my work, but you never know if someone's just saying that to be polite. So it's just a huge accolade that you know, he was very, you know, he kept badgering me to submit actually, which was really, really nice. And they do understand performance poetry as well, and also I think they've got a nice balance between they they do look very hard at the writing, and they have got some really sort of literary poets there, but they're not snobbish about more populist forms as well. They've got a lot, you know, they do understand that if you're writing comic poetry, or if you're writing sort of poetry that's more for performance than the page, that doesn't mean it's worse writing. They do understand that you know, the value of all forms of poetry.
Yeah, and that's like really special. I saw it recently, and I didn't end up watching it, and I'm a bit like, why did I not end up watching that? You were on a lineup, and it was kind of advertised as older poets, because
Yeah, Spitfire, yeah,
Spitfire. Who else was on that bill? So it was you.
It was amazing. It was Joelle Taylor and Zena Edwards were the sort of joint headliners, and Tina Sederholm was also on the bill, and Kat Lyons, who's a non-binary poet, is a fantastic poet. She was hosting. Oh, sorry, they were hosting.
And I've not met Kat Lyons, so I don't know their work, and or Zena, I think, but I know Joelle Taylor, who is fantastic. Tina is amazing.
Yeah.
And, like, how do you find being an older woman in poetry? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like 42 now, so I'm like getting into that. You know, I'm not that early 20s, 30s anymore. How do you find that in your poetry career?
I don't know. It's mostly not a problem. I mean, when I started out, I came up on the Bristol scene, which is a very sort of young, sort of university kind of centered sort of youth, you know, young urban scene. And I found the other poets were amazingly supportive. They just always, at that time, it was also mostly young men as well, but they always treated me exactly like one of them and were incredibly supportive. And audiences were usually right. I think maybe about once a year, I get a really shitty audience that obviously switch off. You can actually see it in their eyes. They switch off the minute they see an older woman walk on stage. But that is the exception. You know, 95% of the, more 99% of the time, audiences are really, really receptive. Occasionally, I do feel with promoters that sometimes I feel they have preconceptions. I mean, I don't know whether that's my age or if it's something else. I mean, because I think I often get people assuming I only write comic poetry for very sort of populist audiences and older audiences as well. I keep getting sent to sort of places like, you know, sort of the Cotswolds to perform to sort of married couples in their 40s or 50s, which and it's not always the best audience for me as well. So
yeah, you're a bit like, some of your work's a bit slicing. Not saying that if you're a married couple in the Cotswold, you can't be kind of appreciate like not dark work, but and I think your work is clever and provocative. Provocative, maybe potentially is the word. I don't know. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it hasn't come up on an urban scene. It just seems that, you know, some urban promoters kind of think, well, you're not an urban poet. You're this, which maybe then maybe I am. I know a lot of older poets that are not good judges of their own work. I mean, I've heard some, well, younger poets as well, but you know, sometimes people say, oh, it's ageism that I don't get booked. When you're a brilliant poet, but even I find your poetry dated, and I'm in my 50s, so I think maybe I'm one of those people as well. That you know, sometimes I don't know my own audience. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to work out, and that idea of being emerging, or have you emerged? I remember I'd not written something for ages, and I applied for something for emerging poets, and I kind of got the response back a bit, you're not emerging, and I was a bit like, at the time I was a bit like, I bloody am. I don't have a book. I don't have, you know, but I suppose maybe I was like straddling that, and I think, I think maybe I've emerged now. I don't know what that means. This is a stupid language we have. Emerging, emerge. Yeah. Like, is there a bit where you're on like walking along and the letter E, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just think one of the things I like about poetry, though, is what I liked is that the idea that actually at any age you can be seen, heard, valued, respected. You can still be doing poetry in your 70s and 80s and still people be like, you're cool. So I like that. You're like, sport kind of tails off, doesn't it? Whereas poetry, I'm like, there's still a long career in this.
And also, I think, often it's older poets. I mean, it's not the case with me. I mean, I went to university at 19, and I have, I'm aware I have a lot of privilege, but I find often it's the older poets that get into it late. It's because, they left school at 16 with no qualifications, and couldn't afford to sort of do anything with it earlier, or they're women who took time out to look after sort of children or elderly parents or whatever. So, I think often if you're excluding older artists, then you are excluding other groups as well, I think.
Yeah. I suppose poetry is something that you've either grown up with or you fall upon. Like you find it and be like, wow, and then it's like a drug. It's like addictive when you go back to perform. And we're coming towards the end of our interview now, and I've really, really enjoyed talking to you. Do you think we could finish on a poem?
Yeah, sure. Just a quick one then. This is a little bit straddles both things we've been talking about, because it's like everything I write, it's obsessed with the English language, but also it's again from my Coffee Art show. It's about basically I've given up on actual men, and now I've started fantasizing about abstract concepts. I once went out with a verb. He was the active type. In fact, I think he must have worked out at the gym because he was a strong verb. I wanted our present to be continuous, but he said although our past had been perfect, he could only see himself forming his future with a modal verb, and it had only ever been a finite thing. He said that although I would always be the first person in his life, a verb had to be conjugated lots of ways. It was in his nature. Because I couldn't agree with my verb being in the second or third person, he said, I'm leaving. I begged him not to be so intransitive. He said, okay, I'm leaving you. I said, it's better. After that, I tried dating an adjective. It was horrible. He kept trying to modify me. So then I went out with a pronoun, but that didn't work out either. He was possessive. He said that when I was with him, I could be me, but I just felt objectified. Since then, I've been out with a noun. He was common. An intensifying adverb, really. An interjection, ouch. Two prepositions, but they were on-off. I draw the line at dating conjunctions. No ifs or buts. But now I'm seeing a spatial adverb, because at least I know where I am with him.
Oh, Melanie, that was a proper word nerd poem. Bringing your two loves together, as you said. I really enjoyed that. Okay, super. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll put your book in the link, and I really look forward to seeing the show wherever I can. Whether I might
thank you very much.
You might get to come up to Wigan and perform at the Old Courts. That would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, I really, really enjoyed it last time, and yeah, that would be lovely. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, well, it's Valentine's Day when we're actually filming this, so happy Valentine's, Melanie. And I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
If you've enjoyed watching the Old Courts live and you'd like to make a donation to support the work we do, please head over to www.theoldcourts.com/donate. This year has been incredibly difficult for most arts organisations, and we're no different. But with a huge effort and support from you and from our funders, we've managed to secure our organisation and the jobs of every staff member. We've also provided 343 artists with paid work for the Old Courts Live. And our volunteers have delivered over 700 food parcels and made 600 calls to isolated local residents. But the battle isn't over yet. We're currently closed to the public with zero income, and we don't know how long this closure is going to last. If you can help by making a donation, then you're helping to secure your arts centre